chairs now because they make really awful noises when you twist them. In all the faculty meetings and many of the classes, we are taking a moment to settle into our setting. You're just getting ready to make the transition from your busy mom getting your kids off to school to just take a moment to contemplate how grateful we are to be together in community with each other, to be at such an amazing school with just these beautiful facilities and teachers who were so passionate about raising our children. And so just take a moment to settle into that thought of gratitude. I think is really important. So today we're going to be talking about the Ruler program. And it is designed by Dr. Mark Brackett. And when I had my time in Connecticut, I was lucky enough to hear him speak about half a dozen times. And then I went up to the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence to get trained in implementing Ruler into schools. And so Dr. Mark Brackett is the head of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and he's created this program called Ruler, which the experts are going to teach you. They're training this year. They've been trained to be trainers, and now are training the teachers. They'll tell you all about it. And so the years that I was looking into this and learning how to put this into schools, it was amazing. It was transformational for my own emotional system. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know my emotions worked like that. And once I could scientifically look at my emotions and contemplate what they do and how they drive me, totally different person. My wife likes me a lot more now than she did before. So it just changes how you can react to different things and to respond to different things. So that's my quick introduction. I'm going to turn it over to Jim McGuire, who's doing an amazing job getting all of these things organized. Let's give him a round of applause.
All right, well, thank you. I'm going to try to juggle two mics here. One, I just want to welcome you all here again. Thank you so much for coming back for installment number 2. If this is your first time to one of these, thank you for coming. Please tell people about these, and the more people, the better. So we'll have 2 more of these events in our wellness series. One will take place in February, one will be in April. The one in February is going to be around digital health, right? And we're really going to try to talk about it from a JK through 12. So it's not just going to be about social media and things like that, right? We're going to talk about things like screen time and all that sort of thing, and really try to do a comprehensive kind of overview of the topics and issues, and really give you all some hopefully good information, but then also a chance to kind of interact with each other. And again, like we talked about last time, there's just so much knowledge in this room in terms of parenting and raising kids, and if we can all kind of learn from one another, I think there's a real value there. So that'll be in February. April's a choose your own adventure. So I sent out the initial email, and there was a link in there for a quick survey. We really want to hear from you and understand what topics are most on your mind. And so I've been collecting all those. I can't promise to cover them all in the last session, right? That's impossible. But we will go through those carefully and really try to look at what seem to be the topics or issues as it relates to our students' wellness and well-being that are most on your minds, and we're going to try to deliver on that in April. So if you haven't filled that out, fill it out. If you want to fill it out twice, fill it out twice. The more information, the better. And then lastly, I just want a huge thank you to Carmichael's. Kelly's helped us get this set up over here. There's a collection of books over at the table that are for sale that we just try to bring the bookstore to you all. But these are some books that have really been reads throughout our time here over the last 4 years as we've been engaging in this work. So there's the Awakened Brain and the Spiritual Child from Dr. Lisa Miller. Rob mentioned Mark Brackett's book, Permission to Feel, is over there. There's Mindful of Race by Ruth King, which is a tremendous read. And then 10% Happier, and then Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. So these are just all really great books. Check them out if you're interested. You can purchase them. We've got it all set up, I think, I got to work on some tech over there, but I think it's all ready to go. So please know that that's available for you as a resource. There's still food and coffee available in the Bickle, which is right behind us. So we close the doors just so it's a little bit quieter. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bridget and Kate. And like Rob said, our ruler implementation team has been working really hard, really since last December, to start to get trained up on this and then bring it to our school. And they've been working in division meetings, full faculty meetings to really bring this ruler program and this understanding of how our emotions matter and how they impact us to the school community. So super grateful for Bridget, Kate, Michelle, Becky, and Emily Kahn's work in this space. They've done tremendous work, and I'm excited to kind of hear from them today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bridget. Great. All right, let's give them a round of applause.
Good morning. Sorry, let me make sure I have this on. Oh.
We're aware of that feedback sample working
I think
on.
it's the two microphones together.
Yeah, should I not use both of them together?
Yeah, I don't think you need that for this one's for the audience at home. Yeah, so everybody.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Great. Okay, good morning. So I'm Bridget McGuire. I'm the lower school counselor, and I love the energy in this room. I'm so used to presenting to lower school parents, but I look around the room and I see middle school parents, I see upper school parents. So I think it's really fun when we can all get together in one space. I think it adds value to our work, and I think, I hope this morning we have a packed agenda with learning opportunities for you all and things to do. So the very first thing I'm going to ask you to do does not sound very well, but could you please take out a cell phone if you have it? And we're going to have you do a quick mood meter check-in. Before I even tell you much about the mood meter, I am going to explain later with content what the mood meter is. But if you can please take out your phone and go to new plot. Jim, will you just make sure? Yeah.
I got it.
Okay. So we are going to do a quick mood check-in using your phone, and this will plot all of us up here. It'll be anonymous. Your names won't be up here, but pretty soon we should pick up thank you. Okay, so if you can, please visit moodmeter.online, and you're going to put this code in, and hopefully you are going to get to something that looks like this. And what I'm going to have you do as you're looking at that, so we have a color grid, and we'll give you some more words to define what the colors mean, but right now we're just looking at the numbers at the bottom and on the side. So the bottom numbers represent pleasantness, and then this side of the axis represents energy. So I want you to think for a minute about where you are from a -5 to a 5, your overall pleasantness, and where you are feeling energy level from a -5 to a 5. So start by just plotting that. Should be fairly
So kind of
self-explanatory.
Axes first, and then.
Do you want me to read it?
Intersect.
Okay, yes. moodmeter.online/7WZBWQ.
So one person's already gotten in, that's good. And you should start seeing little dots popping up on the mood meter. Does it ask if you're feeling Okay, so we have 12 people. I'm looking around the room. My guess is we have 30 in the room, so we'll give you another couple minutes to see if you can get it. Give it about another minute and then we'll flip on the results. So this is one tool of the tools that we're going to learn about today with Ruler. And this is something that we can use with students. I know Jim has used it with high school students in a co-ed class that he's teaching. And this is just a nice way for students to enter a space and to check into a class. It can be used in a lot of different ways, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in the presentation, but we thought it would be a fun way for you guys just to check into our group. So Kate, do you want to go ahead and push the results and we'll see if it gives us a graph. Okay, so did that just stop it?
Yeah, just stop.
Okay. So, good morning. You can move slides now if you want to go back. Oh, okay, so here's the results. Yes. These were different feelings. So it prompted you to then, once you plotted your pleasantness and your energy, to use a feeling word. So here are some of the words that described the mood in the room today: calm, productive, engaged, empowered, curious, chill. I love it. Some really good words to help us describe our emotions. So we're going to talk more about sort of that common vocabulary and the many different ways that we can help kids identify a feeling and express that feeling.
I also saw tense and annoyed.
Tense and annoyed.
So we're gonna work on that. And if you want to move out of that area, the mood meter, you can.
All right, so here's our agenda for this morning. I'll do this, I think, was this one mine? Okay, yes. So our agenda for this morning: goals and introduction. Kate, you can keep going to the next one. That's okay. Why do emotions matter anyway? We're going to talk a little bit about why emotions matter. We're going to talk specifically about Ruler. So we're hoping to give you a general overview of Ruler as a curriculum that our school is going to be using, particularly in JK through 8th grade, and we'll talk about what we're going to do moving up into the high school. We're going to do a charter activity together, so that wasn't the first expectation of participation. We're going to have you do something at your tables at the end that we hope is valuable, and then we will wrap you up.
And for today, our goals are that we hope you leave today's presentation feeling more in touch with your emotions and curious about how Ruler as an approach can help you personally and in enhancing your parenting skills. And we also hope that you feel supported and hopeful. So, what is Ruler? It's really important for us to help you understand that Ruler is not like a program. It's not a set program, it's an approach. And it's an evidence-based approach to social and emotional learning. So I'll just read this because it's the best way to say it. Through training in the Ruler approach, teachers and leaders learn skills to create and sustain a positive emotional climate, as well as support individual development of emotion skills for students and adults. And when I read that, I think there couldn't be anything better than kids who grow up in a school with an approach like this to become adults as successful as they can be.
Okay, so let's do a quick check-in about why our emotions matter. I think we all understand what emotions and feelings are, but I think this is a nice description of why they are important. Obviously, emotions are ingrained in who we are as human beings. We are teaching a lot of young human beings, and we're all human beings, so it's a way that we connect and relate to each other. They influence our personal and professional lives throughout each day, guiding our thoughts and our interactions with others. So if you think about even the mood meter plot that we just did, some people had identified that they were maybe feeling agitated or annoyed walking into a day. So think about the life of your students. They're walking in every day with experiences, with family situations, with good mornings, with rough mornings. They're coming into our space with feelings from the minute they walk in the door. So it's really important that we recognize that that's happening, and we help them to express those and regulate those throughout the day. Emotions are immediate responses to stimuli. So emotions happen in response to things that are happening to us all day. So we are all interacting, we are all relating to one another, we are all having experiences throughout the day, and our emotions are just immediate responses to all the stimuli that we're facing. emotions inform our behavior. So think about that for a minute. Emotions inform our behavior. So when we're thinking about behaviors that we all engage in, behaviors that our kids engage in throughout the day, their learning behaviors, their adaptive behaviors, their social behaviors, those are all really driven at the core by their emotions and what they're experiencing. Emotions are adaptive. So they help us get through many different situations. They help us get through our day. Brene Brown, who I know has written done a lot of research and written a lot of material, and I know she's probably a familiar name to many of you. She did this really short, quick little video that I wanted to show you. It's about 2 minutes long, and it's about the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is a really tough emotion to teach. I try to teach it, and I think sometimes we think it's innately just a part of who we are, and I do think some people have sort of higher innate levels of empathy towards others, but I do think it's teachable. And so from a very young age, even in my classes with 4-year-olds, we start talking about what is empathy? What does it mean to understand somebody else's perspective? Why do we think that's important? Because our behaviors and our emotions are bumping up against each other all the time, right? And some of our emotions, when we talk about emotions being adaptive, are in response to somebody else's emotions. Think about a time that maybe your emotional state was triggered by your child's emotional state, or your emotional state was triggered by being in a relationship with somebody that was maybe feeling dysregulated or having a big emotion. So she does this really, it's just a really short video about the difference. The nuances of emotion, I think, are so important, and that's what this approach is going to help us to teach teachers and students in our community. So we'll watch this really quick. I haven't linked.
And even if you have seen this before, it's nice to watch it through the lens of imagining your 7th grader, imagining your 9th grader, and what do they need from you in the moment they come home and say, I didn't get to sit with my friends at lunch. You can say, well, suck it up. I don't get to sit with my friends at lunch, or do they want you to say that? No, that's not how they want you to react to them.
No.
And so I love when Bridget always says in a parenting moment, like, put yourself in neutral. I love that. Put yourself in neutral and try to have some empathy.
Sorry for the commercials.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think that empathy is this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, huh? You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I have it, yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I would maybe say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
I love the visual of getting in the hole, right? So you get in the hole. So think about a time that maybe a friend or your child was experiencing what they considered a really big emotional moment of feeling overwhelmed. And that, I watch that from the perspective first of like myself wanting to be better at having empathy towards others, but the connection for our kids. So trying to raise them in a way that they can get in the hole with people, with their friends, in their relationships, and not try to at least everything. Just sometimes saying to your child, I believe you. I'm going to sit here with you. That is really hard. We can't fix things for people, for our kids. We can sit in the hole with them, right? And we can try to do things that are, that build the connection. Because I think the connection is a really important part of our community. I think that's probably a big part of why we chose this school together, is that the connection is really important. So the connections between our students, the connection between your child and their teachers, the connection between us as parents. So I just love the nuance there. I think that's really important to see how just two different words have such different meanings. I think empathy and sympathy, we often sometimes blend together, but a part of what Ruler does is really help kids have a huge vocabulary, a really rich vocabulary of different ways that they can express feelings and understand feelings. Keep it up. Am I up next? Oh, I am. I'm still up. Okay. Okay, really quick. How do emotions impact us? So this is what the research tells us from Ruler, the 4 main areas of our lives that are affected by emotions. Think about your own lives and your child's life coming to school and how important these parts of their lives are, their attention, memory, and learning. So, I mean, right off the bat, right, we think about all the academic content that they are wrestling with when they come to school, paying attention to it, being able to remember and learn things. Decision making, that's huge. If there's something, there's nothing I think that we would want more for our kids than to be able to have some skills to make positive decisions for themselves. The quality of their relationships. So having deeply connected relationships that have high quality, I think is really important. Mental and physical health. So I don't think any of us in the room as parents, or even for ourselves, can look at this and say that those things are not important. I would argue that those things are the most important. That for us to build students that are healthy and well and can access their attention, can access their memory, can be in a place where they can make positive decisions and connect in a quality way, high quality way with their relationships, I think probably is the most important. So that's what we hope Ruler will do, is give us an approach and give our teachers an approach to sort of help kids build these skills in these areas.
And as Bridget she was talking about, like, don't silver lining it and all these things, like, we're all here because of our children and the students, and that's why we all come to work every day. But as we said in our goals for how you feel, we also want this to be really important work for you. So when you're thinking about your friends or your family members or people who are going through a hard time, I mean, it's okay not to think about your kids sometimes. What? I know. But that's okay. And it's really, really important for you to be able to use what we're talking about. And as we implement this program this year approach at Collegiate, I don't think we said this yet, but we're starting with our teachers. Because we want to have a common vocabulary and knowledge about this approach before we try to teach it to the kids. And so far, it has been a really amazing thing to work with in our divisions. Bridget's doing so much work in the lower school. Emily Kahn and I are in the middle school, and Julianne Dietz in our upper school is with us. They're not doing Ruler in upper school, but her social emotional learning program that she's implementing is aligned with this. And then my 8th graders who are going to go to her next year will already have some hints of this throughout the year, and then it'll continue. So again, I guess I'm giving you permission to think about all we're doing today for your children, but also for yourself, just as a reminder. So this video is a few minutes. It's one of my favorites. I've probably watched it 14 times, and every time I watch it, I think of something else. So when we think of emotions, a lot of times it's positive emotions or negative emotions, but this gives you a different way to think about that. And I want closed captioning. The sound at the beginning is tough, so if you need to read it, maybe you can't even read it.
Have you ever studied closed captioning or using a support meeting up with a friend and realized it's a signal about the relationship? Or maybe you felt that anxiety about a deadline actually energized you to work harder and to focus. We tend to prefer pleasant emotions because they feel good. Joy in the company of friends, enthusiasm in a new job, inspiration to be creative, and serenity in the arms of a loved one. These emotions not only feel pleasant, those situations. For example, by building relationships or making us more productive or effective. But can unpleasant emotions be helpful too? Have you ever shared a significant loss with a friend or a loved one, and in sharing in your sorrow, you became even closer? Or maybe you witnessed an injustice and got so infuriated that you stood up for someone else or you rallied for a cause. Unpleasant emotions, whether low energy like sadness or high energy like anger, can be helpful. In some cases, they keep us safe. For instance, in an emergency, it is fear that calls us to action. What's more, we know that expressing and discussing these unpleasant emotions, like anxiety or loneliness, with people we trust, can help us connect in deeper ways. What is not helpful is thinking about a specific emotion as either always positive or always negative, based on how pleasant or unpleasant it feels. Even pleasant emotions are not helpful all the time. For instance, being overly excited before a test can make it hard to focus. In sports, we may feel elated after winning a game. But when our opponent is our friend who is sad about losing, we may want to consider holding back our relation in order to show empathy. In conclusion, we cannot assume that pleasant emotions are always positive, or that unpleasant emotions are always negative. All emotions can be helpful depending on the context and how they're expressed and received.
We haven't let you talk much. Do you have any reactions to that? Yes.
It reminds me of a podcast I listened to today. It's Susan Kennedy, who wrote that really great book, Quiet, and she's got this book out called Bittersweet, which totally relates to that balance of like accepting the humanity with
Thanks.
I haven't read it.
It's on the list.
I know when I watched it and we watched it with the implementation team, just the framing the healthy balance of emotions for ourselves and for our kids, and to be able to go into conversations accepting all emotions and not trying to label them in this, like you're having a good or a bad emotion. And I think kids naturally sometimes think that way, like I'm anxious, that's bad, I have a problem. But our anxiety can also fuel some creativity. Our anxiety can sometimes push us to make a change in a relationship or in a job or in a even a friend relationship with young kids that's maybe healthy and needed. So I loved it because I feel like all the work I do with kids around emotions, to be able to peel back some of the labels that we put on emotions and just be able to sit with a lot of different emotions and helping them understand, right? How many times we're talking to kids about like being proud of themselves about an athletic event or doing well on a test, but the kid that's sitting next to you that didn't do so well, and trying to regulate that emotion so that you can also connect with other people around you. So that's really part of it too, is like helping us understand our own emotions so that we can also interact in more healthy, positive ways with others and strengthen relationships.
I did a few months ago, I did a 12-week course that was based on resilience. And one of the big things that they talked about and tried to ingrain in us is that 50% of emotions are positive and 50% are negative, right? And you can't always have positive emotions. There has to be negative emotions. And that when you have an emotion, it is your body trying to give you information. And the point of the emotion, which is derived from some thought, is that your body is telling you this is how you are reacting to that. And then you can choose to take that emotion and use it in a way that's productive for you, right? So that's what I do.
Thank you, yeah.
I think about the sheer volume or number of different emotions that one can experience, and yet how people feel comfortable and safe expressing. And so the resistance of the energy that it takes to keep that emotion inside and not express it. Or when you ask someone, like, how many different emotions have you felt? They name 4. You're like, wow. That's another person, they say 37 on a good day.
Yeah.
And so just the sheer volume and continuum from everything is great to everything sucks and everything in between, being allowed and feeling comfortable to express and experience all of it.
Which leads really nicely into the next slide that Kate's going to show you, which is what the 5 skills of Ruler teach. And a part of it is helping kids with the tools that they need to express. So I think that our kids are feeling things and sometimes don't have the skills or the tools. These are all teachable things that they need to be able to say, like, this is what the language to say what they're feeling, the ways to express it depending on the setting and who they're with, being able to access some really teachable skills that allows them to do that in a healthy way. So yes, that's very good. I think that's why we like this approach.
Thanks. So Ruler stands for recognizing emotions in self and others, understanding the causes and consequences of emotions, labeling your emotions accurately, expressing emotions appropriately, and regulating your emotions effectively. So if you look at that, and our students leave collegiate really well versed in all of this, wouldn't you say that's pretty good? Is this sounding good to you so far? You liking this? Okay. All right.
I paused and asked the lower school teachers, can you go back to that slide just for a minute? After we listed these and I was explaining them, and I asked the lower school teachers just to pause for a minute and think about themselves and those skills. How do you do with all 5 of those skills? Where are you at in your journey and in your process? Because this is not there's no end to this learning game as far as emotional regulation and management. And many of the teachers were like, oh yeah, I mean, regulating emotions when I am angry, upset, that's still really tough for me, right? And think about yourselves when you're in a tough parenting moment or when you are reacting to somebody else's emotions. How well do you feel like you are recognizing, understanding? I don't remember these things necessarily being taught to me explicitly when I was in elementary school. Probably not even, I mean, I don't even remember really learning these things in high school. So I think the learning, what I love about this is the learning is really for all of us. It's for our teachers, it's for us as parents, it's for our kids. So if we can learn alongside them, I think we would all agree that there's probably some skills and tools in there that we have not mastered, because I don't believe that there really is mastery. I feel like this is a process that we're all on together. And so it's okay to be sitting here thinking, I'm not great about labeling my emotions. That's still work I need to do within myself. But think about how powerful, if you can start that work and continue that work, how powerful that is going to be for you to work alongside your child as age 4, they're starting to learn these things, or they will start learning ways to do this. So I think that's the hopeful part of what we were hoping you would get today, is that you don't have to be stuck. These are skills and tools that we can all use ourselves that I think will enhance our parenting, enhance our own relationships. And if we are operating in a more healthy way, I think we would agree that it's going to help our kids operate in a more healthy way. So, yeah.
I just wanted to piggyback onto that and underscore this. I did some work with an intensive cardiac rehab program. So these are folks who had heart attacks or heart failure or all these kinds of things. And they're later in life, 50s, 60s, 70s. But one of the core tenets of the program was identifying how they were feeling. Because so many folks who end up with like cardiac issues is because they don't know how they're feeling, and stress contributes a lot. They don't recognize they're upset, so they can't manage that. Or, why am I eating like 3 tubs of ice cream? And a lot of times it's because of how you're feeling. But they grew up in a generation, I mean, we're still learning these things, but definitely like our grandparents had no understanding of how to recognize this stuff. So it was amazing. It was only a 9-week program, but it was pretty like groundbreaking to see the change that could happen so quickly just with how they were feeling, and like a physical trauma just by understanding how they were feeling.
Thank you. And speaking of like generations, why we're doing all of this with faculty is so that we can, like I said, have this common vocabulary. And I think already the work that we've done has helped teachers increase our vocabulary and recognize that if we're irritated that somebody forgot to, cover our carpool duty when they said they would. Are we irritated with them or irritated with something else? And kind of dig into that a little bit. So it's working on our relationships as adults, taking better care of ourselves so we can take better care of your children. So, yes.
When you plot like a group like this and everybody says they're like yellow and green, do you feel like that's accurate, or do you feel like there's only 2 people in here that trust you enough to say it?
You have more than one emotion at the same.
Yeah.
Like that's,
So I think
choose the emotion that's the
Well, I was so glad somebody wrote tense and annoyed. Like, thank you. Because, like, no, not everybody's walking in this morning on a gross, wet, cold day. Like, I'm so glad to be here. Parking was so easy. No, that's not how we came in. So I think it depends on the relationship and building that trust. And
Yeah,
so,
like obviously, like we're in this new space together for the first time. It's not like we are a part of a regular group that comes together. So I can understand why when I just said, hey, we're going to plot your mood before we tell you anything else, you're probably like, wait, is this like showing up somewhere? Is my name attached to this? Is this on a YouTube video? But the hope would be, right, if we're doing some of these things in a class setting where students have relationships with each other and with teachers, that they're going to be more comfortable. And not always. And a part of it is teaching them some of the skills maybe before they get to the point that they can express in a more comfortable way where they are. So I think it's a little bit of
I would add, like when I've done this with sophomores, 10th graders, like we actually talk about like, are there different settings where you feel more comfortable expressing? We get to the expression part, right? Because there are going to be some places that I'm going to feel more comfortable expressing certain parts of the quadrant or certain quadrants, maybe at home than I'm going to feel in the workplace or whatever the case. And I think just acknowledging that and talking through that and like, okay, well, where are those places where which quadrants do you feel most comfortable expressing in these various settings and kind of what's behind that? So that's very much part of that expression piece. That's an excellent point.
Okay, we're going to move along just because we have some more content we want to share. The next thing we're going to show you, it's a 7-minute video, but I think it's really nice because it really gives you just a nice general overview of Ruler. We're not delving into so many specifics now. Like we said, we're working with teachers this year, and we'll start rolling out some things with students next year. As a part of that rollout, parents will be much more involved. So let's just watch. I think you'll get a good flavor of what Ruler is about.
Ruler makes our school a better place. I feel that Ruler has helped me because I'm able to show what I am. I think after having Ruler come in, I've grown so confident and just like what I like always see myself to be.
Ruler asserts that all emotions matter. All emotions. It's the full range of emotions that makes us human, and it's the full range of emotions that helps us to get through life. Ruler is a systemic approach to social emotional learning. We want to give school districts the opportunity to build a common language for social emotional learning.
You need feeling, or else you can't cooperate, you can't communicate, and you can't do anything. If you're mad, you can't talk about being mad when you talk.
Too many kids are holding it all in, and we're seeing a rise in anxiety and stress in children that doesn't need to be there.
They're really thinking about cyberbullying and body shaming as opposed to academic.
If we are all working together on our social emotional language, we are making a school a safer, more caring, and joyful place to be for all children.
When I come to school, like, everybody's just so welcome, like I can trust everybody, like let them know what's going on, and really supportive back.
Research shows that kids who go through this kind of training are less stressed. They do have less depression.
Going back and like looking at my emotions and being like, what am I feeling right now? And like, how can I regulate this? I think that's like a really good thing to be teaching people.
Students are having better conversations with each other. Discipline incidents have decreased and students are able to.
Here's the research.
It really supports the development of the whole child in every way.
Try to empathize with other characters well. How do you think the other person felt? And how did the other person show up?
Ruler is set of 5 key skills that are the underlying skills of emotional intelligence. Recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, regulating emotions. We use a set of anchors, tools to help people build greater self-awareness, to build a better emotional vocabulary for the schools, help make our students more aware of their classmates. We're trying to give everyone the opportunity to become more emotionally skilled.
We built a school-wide charter together, the whole school did it together.
The most important thing about the charter is you could see how everyone else wants to feel. On our charter, some of the words we came up with were relaxed, comfortable, happy, excited.
We were able to relate to our classmates more because we realized they were feeling the same things as we were.
Citing the charter united the school. We're making this decision to be positive towards each other, to be nice.
in classrooms, we've seen students use the mood meter to check in and to regulate how they are feeling.
If you go left to right, that's your pleasantness, and then when you go up and down, that's how much energy you have.
The yellow means your energy's high, the green means you're kind of sad, the blue means when you're sad, you're lonely, and the red means when you're like angry, you're not focused.
Where are you on the meter? I think I'm on the green.
Blue is green.
A mix between green and yellow.
I'm on the yellow because today's a new day.
To me, the meta moment is that tool that can be applied anywhere, immediately.
The meta moment is important because it helps me to stay focused on my work.
Students are using tools like the meta moment so that they can avoid some of those situations that might escalate into something else.
And now that I know about it, the meta moment, I could take a deep breath and just sitting down and it could help.
The key element of the meta moment is pausing and activating what we call our best selves.
My best self is me following my goals for the term.
I am helpful to others, peaceful, happy, and relaxed.
The blueprint, it's been very helpful with students that are having an ongoing conflict.
If someone will come down in the red mad, if you say to them, well, what happened? They'll just still be mad hot. So we'll give them the blueprint and have them just work. What happened?
Frustrating to showing these real quick.
You have to understand what people are thinking and going through, so you have to like put yourself in somebody else. I think she felt like she was excluded and that she just felt
The tools are looking you start the activity for us.
It helped push me and it boosted up my confidence and made me like feel like I was important.
Ruler begins by training the adults in schools to shift their mindsets around the value and importance of emotions.
We spent a year working with staff, just teaching them the ruler skills and the anchor tools and using it in everything we did with each other.
Because educators, like kids, come from many different places. And so really getting them to take a look and reflect upon their own practices. What are they doing? How do they resolve the issues that they are feeling within?
we really are investing in making sure that all of the adults are all embracing this approach so that every student can be successful. With this, you're going to be able to see.
Our healing work for today, boys and girls, is focus.
They're going to be able to see what you're teaching, the kids are going to be able to learn.
We also work with families because we want children and their parents or caretakers to have the same language.
It's not just the schoolhouse, it's what's going on at sporting events, what's going on at home. When you're sitting around watching evening news, how are you reacting to the news when your son or daughter is sitting next to you? You need to be aware how your emotion can influence them. There's no doubt that the ruler approach allows for enhanced learning.
I learned best when I feel happy and focused.
I think it's really like a life skill that they're giving us here.
It cut out, and that's okay because it's at the end. I love just the sneak peek into the classroom and what that looks like. The visual supports the conversation, little kids talking about, I can't cooperate if I'm not dealing with my feelings. Teacher burnout, we do not want our teachers to feel burnout. We want our teachers to have tools and skills so that they can handle the many emotions that come with them into the school and throughout the day when they're interacting with kids. Yesterday it was, we had a lower school division meeting and we had time to do ruler training with our lower school teachers. And I was doing a mood meter activity and I had split the teachers into pairs to talk about the mood meter and to go through different emotional experiences that they were having. And I gave everybody kind of a partner that they wouldn't normally work with. So I split up divisions and let me tell you, the child energy right now before the holidays is high. These teachers were tired. It's Wednesday. It's been gloomy every day this week. This meeting was supposed to go till 5 and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is such a long day and we're kind of at the end. And I partner the teachers up and I'm looking at the clock thinking, and they're all really engaged, right? But I'm sitting there like feeling for them, like we need to get them out of here. Like it's been a long day. They still have 2 more days in this week. And so I was getting ready to finish the activity and I was like, okay, everybody, like 1 more minute to talk to your partner. And they're like, no, we need more time. We need a couple more minutes, a few of them. So we went on and I just thought, you know what? Like they need the time to debrief their emotions and to talk about their emotional regulation as much as we hope our kids are going to be able to do that with us in the school and with you as parents. So I'm loving the work that we're doing with the teachers a lot this year because it's really giving them a chance before they just have to go and teach this. We're sending the message to our teachers that like your emotional capacity is really important to us. And we want you to be emotionally in a good place so that you can better guide our students, which is how I feel about our parenting too. So thanks. Okay, Kate. So we're going to really quick, because we have an activity we want you all to work on at your tables. We'll go through the 4 anchor tools that they mentioned. Yes, Waller.
I want to say, well, first of all, Kate and Bridget, you all do an incredible job projecting, happiness. And it's funny because watching all of these videos, all these kids are talking about, we're just really high energy and we're really happy. And, I think a lot of it has to do with, learning how to project that, even though we all have all this baggage, we all have all of these emotions, we all have our personal struggle. And, it's interesting, some people have a really hard time dealing with that and overcoming that and just putting positivity out there. So, that scale, moving over here with this graph chart, whatever you want to call it, moving from the red to the yellow, a lot of it is just, being able to kind of move away from that and just put, positivity out there. So how do you do that? Can you train people how to, get over, or not get over it, because it's something that you do have to deal with, work through. But just putting that out there, it's really important. It's just like, if you just start laughing, it's like, there's studies that show that just like raises your mood, your happiness, and everything else. It's just like a stupid, silly thing to do, but there are like all sorts of different ways to kind of do that. Like, how is that part of your all's program?
So I think that's the regulation. That's the R that stands for regulation. So the last R in ruler is regulating. So we're never telling kids that they can't have that feeling or that they can't bring that feeling to school. We're not telling you as parents that you can't go through the emotional experiences that you're having. Are there times, though, that we come into work, I don't know, or you come into your workspace dysregulated, irritated, annoyed, cranky, and we sort of have to put on a little bit of a professional. Like my job now is to switch into taking care of others. And so I have to find a regulation tool. So what we're hoping is that the tools under regulation, that we haven't shown you everything yet, that you'd have a tool or two in your toolbox that you could sort of grab in that moment, regulate that irritation, annoyed feeling so that you can somehow shift. It's not about taking away. It's not about saying you can't come to your space, wherever your space is with that feeling. But is there a regulation skill in that moment that you can use to help you regulate and kind of cope? So we hope that's what we're going to be providing to the students. It's a really good point, right? That we all, there's a game face sometimes. And we certainly I don't want you and I don't want children to think that we can't have any kind of emotion. And of course, in the video, I know they're really positive, right? And they're trying to give you an overview, but that's not what school looks like every day, right? No. And Kate and I can tell you, there's many times that we're, kids are in the red zone or the blue zone, and we're helping them shift temporarily so they can access some of that memory and that some of those other things that they need to be able to learn in that moment. Think about how hard it is for some of our students to come in and learn about math when they are having a really strong emotion about something that they're experiencing. But we can certainly try to give them a tool that lessens that gap a little bit. Yeah. So it's a really good question. Yeah.
So I'm really excited about this. Thank you. This sounds like a great tool that you all are bringing, approach. I am a processing emotions coach, so this is what I do day in and day out with my clients. One of the things that I'm curious about in this that I haven't heard you all address is basically the origin of our emotions. I think so many of us were taught that you make mommy feel mad when you da-da-da-da-da. Part of what I do as a coach for adults is help them unwind that belief. No one can cause us to feel anything. Do we have mirror neurons? Do we co-regulate? Yes, those things exist. But that teaching that you made your friend feel this way or your friend made you feel something, everything I've researched and everything I do tells me that is not true. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that's so important is that means that ultimately we are the ones, each of us individually, are in charge of our own self. is very empowering. So I guess I'm curious about how, and of course that doesn't mean that then we aren't a responsible human who shows up well, right? But it means that ultimately we individually and our children, everyone in this space has the power to do that shift, do our own regulation and take ownership of how we feel so that we can process through that or change it or sit with it if we just want to feel sad. So I guess I'm curious how you address that teaching in regards to this ruler approach.
That's cute at you.
I was looking at you.
It's a good question. Yeah.
I mean, you're a processing emotions coach. That's awesome.
Amazing. I know.
I didn't know that existed. That's amazing. I mean, when you're talking, I was thinking about like our individual work, like Julian and Bridget and I, our individual work with kids and how we can sit individually and kind of unpack the origin of their feelings if it gets to a point in class where they need to step out or they're having a conflict with friends, and we can do that individually. I don't think that like the origin of emotions is part of ruler.
Maybe not specifically.
Practically, the kids, when you're working with them, like the recognizing and the understanding is empowering, and that you're like, hey, this is how this shows up for me, right? And like really, like, you know, when I'm frustrated or irritated or anxious or whatever, I know that this, and for me, this is how this feels, right? And then once I understand that, I can label it correctly and accurately, because that's really important too, right? Like sometimes I might just feel this like generalized like stress, right? But is it anxiety? Is it fear? Is it a sense of feeling overwhelmed? I mean, all of those things I'm going to respond in different ways with different tools to address those things, right? Depending on how I'm identifying those things. So it's not explicitly taught, but there's this like, it's implied kind of in the program, like it's empowering to the individual, because you're saying, hey, this is you, this is how it shows up in you, this is how you understand yourself, this is how you might label it, and then this is how you might express it, and and then regulate within yourself, that kind of thing. So
I remember,
good point.
Yeah, and I go back to that first slide where it's like there's a stimuli and an emotion. And so helping kids, like your stimuli could be like the bad weather is making me feel gloomy, grumpy. The stimuli could also be I'm having a relationship conflict with a friend. So I think probably it's more about just that identification of like what is the stimuli. It might help them understand where their emotions come from, if that makes sense.
So, and just to throw this into this last thing I'll say, so there's a missing step for me. There's the stimuli, there's the thought we have about it.
Yes, yes.
There's the feeling from the thought, because I could see the rain, they could be a rainy day and feel, yes!
Yes, yeah, it could give you high energy, yes.
Right, so like, I think that to me is where that power shift lies, and I think it's much harder to teach that to lower school kids than it is with...
So like in upper school, we talk about our values, right? We talk about what our identity is, what our values are, and how our experiences, our emotions, and those values interact with each other. And so for understanding like where your emotions come from is having a sense of who you are and what you value. So if something happens, it might impact me completely different than Bridget based on what we value, right? Based on our own experiences. So like in my classes, when I meet with the kids, right? It's like identifying what are all the emotions in that situation, right? Because often the last emotion is what we stick to, right? Not all the emotions that impact us. And then looking at like who we are and how that impacts who we are and contradicts or supports what we find important. So it's kind of part of that growth process.
And I think there's developmental, it's developmentally planned, right? So as I look through the ruler content, you know, a lesson for a 4-year-old on those 5 skills is going to look really different from a lesson that you're doing with a 15-year-old about the thought process and what your thoughts are telling you. And so I think it's organically kind of built in through some of their developmental scaling. That's kind of the best way I can answer it right now. And you know, we're still like, I know Rob said we were experts, like we're still getting familiar with the content and trying to train the teachers on some of it. So I can come back to that.
We're so excited, like, that, you know, the upper school kids will come to us like with the ability to label emotions, to understand that
a strong core,
regulate emotions, and that other people's emotions impact us, and our emotions impact other people. And so, kind of working on those more sophisticated processing of emotions when they get to us in upper school.
Yeah.
I feel compelled to speak
Please.
And it's about sort of the whole interaction that happened right here. And a lot of what they taught me in this thing that I did, which was because I was in a very bad place and I was totally changed what I did with my whole life. I was in a very bad place. And sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
I came to understand that if you look at the ruler thing, I am a master, an expert at helping other people. Part of my job in literally every aspect of my world is to be the rock that stays standing under the waterfall of everybody else's struggle. That is who I am in what I am. And I sit with people all the time in very negative moments and in very stressful moments, and can be the eye in a hurricane. But not once did I ever think about my emotions. Never. And I came to understand that that is why I was in such a bad place. It wasn't what I was doing for everybody else. It was what I was not doing for myself ever. And they really taught me, like when you were speaking, after this gentleman spoke, I had a very negative reaction. And I really like you. And what happened is it made me really worry. And that's because what I 100% do not want you guys to teach our children is that they have to put on a game face and show up, because that is what I did all the time, and that's how I got to where I was. Not to be negative about what you were saying. But what I want you to teach them is how to find a positive space in understanding why they're feeling what they're feeling, right? So I was feeling worried that you were going to teach Dexter to be that way, which I don't want him to follow in my footsteps. Way.
Yes.
And they absolutely taught me that you have a reaction and understanding the thought that produced that reaction, right? I felt bad. I identified that I felt worried. Why did I feel worried? I worried that you would teach Dexter to be like me, which is what I really don't want. And understanding that is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And I can say, I don't want this loop to happen. So that piece has to go in there.
Yeah.
And it can't be all about always understanding everybody else, and it can't be about saying, okay, I'm gonna put on my game face. It has to be. So what I do now, I used to get up in the morning and look at all the information about work before I went in at like 4 in the morning. Instead, what I do is I get up at 5 in the morning and I go and I sit in my blue chair in the library in my house, and I deep breathe for a while, and then I think about what I want the day to be like, and then I read like 3 pages in a book, and sometimes the cat sits in my lap, and I drink a few sips of coffee while I do that, and then when I go to work, I take the stairs up to the office, and then I get there, and I'm like, hey guys, and it has changed my life. It's changed my life. And I hope that is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'd like the self-process. Thank you. And I think
so many minutes. Thanks for listening.
No, thank you so much for sharing. And I think I remember saying the game face, and that probably is not exactly the words that I meant to use, right? And all of this is about common language and helping kids identify the language to express themselves. So in that moment, I probably didn't express well what I hope happens, which is the same thing that you hope happens, right? That our kids have some self-internal reflective tools and skills that they can hone in on. And it might look different than what your morning routine looks like, right? But that they have one, that they build a plan for themselves that works for themselves, that is reflective, that helps them live in the space that they're in, that helps them still have interactions with people that they need to interact with regardless of their emotional capacity in that moment. So yes, we are on the same page and the same team, and thank you. I really, really appreciate you speaking up, because this is a part of the process, is all of us trying to identify what is happening internally within us so that we can understand our own emotions, help teach our kids to understand their emotions. Yeah.
When it comes to middle school, when I do lessons, I definitely acknowledge that this is the time in their life that most adults either don't remember, have blocked out, and would never go back to. But for some people, I acknowledge that it was the best years of their life, middle school was. So it's everything and anything. And that's why in like silly Wednesday morning meetings, with the whole middle school, we do like dumb games that are so silly that make teachers look like idiots, and the kids love it. Or my character classes right now are bringing all small groups of kids, every kid in the middle school, to my room to play Bop It. My lessons about suicide and sexual health are paused right now so we can just play Bop It and be silly. And then, there's a little bit of Bop It, and there's a little bit of like, remember, this is a safe place for you to come when things aren't good and you're tired of wearing your mask all day. So
in the spirit of time, because I'm mindful of my own time and lessons I have to go teach the kids right now, and your time. So the 4 tools were described in that overview video, which I'm glad we were able to show. And I was going to go into those more deeply. But what you are going to be given, and I was hoping we could start this as a table so that you could have some discussion with your table mates. And we can stick around for a few minutes if we want to do some of that. The charter, can you go back to the charter slide just really quick, Jim? The charter is a tool that Ruler helps kids create norms within their classroom. And there's 2 essential questions kids would be answering. How do they want to feel? How do they as a person want to feel coming into the space? And how can they help each other get those feelings? So what we're giving you is one of the parenting tools that comes with the Ruler approach, which is a family charter, which is very explicitly, clearly, directionally given to you on that sheet that you could go home and do a little practice with your family around. And I think we probably need more copies. Do we? Just one? Okay, that's awesome. I can, Lauren, if you're okay, I can email you. Oh, Carrie, you don't mind? Thanks, Carrie. Can I borrow this just for a second? So take this with you. I'm going to give you a little family challenge or homework if you so want to do it. It's called Creating a Family Charter, and this is an agreement that you're going to make to act in ways that help you support each other in your family, basically. It gives you very explicit directions on how to do this. So this would be a process that you would include your children in, a family discussion at home with whatever grown-ups live in your space. And it's really nice because it really is just asking, like, as a family, everybody in the family would identify. This would be your smallest up to your oldest. And I am telling you, 4-year-olds can talk about their feelings more than they're more capable sometimes than you think. How do we want to feel in our family? What can we do in order to have those feelings? Try this. Have this as a dinner conversation, do a family discussion. It doesn't have to be formal. You can make it really fun and like write these things out. You can post your charter in your kitchen, on your fridge, so that you can go back to it on any given day and say, remember, in our family, we all talked about we want to feel supported. And if there's a moment where somebody's not feeling supported, what can you do to help shift that energy or to help everybody feel supported? So it's kind of a nice family value exercise too around feelings. What do people in your family want to feel as a family? Probably not the feelings of like agitated, irritated, always in a rush, stressed. So it's a good exercise just to get your kids talking about some feelings. There, of course, is stuff on the internet that you can look up about Ruler that can give you like mood meters. You can pull those up anywhere if you need a visual way for your kids to access some different words that they haven't been taught yet, or some different ways for them to be able to identify feelings. We were going to have you start kind of a family charter at your tables and discuss, but we are, I know, short on time. So if you want to take one of these with you and do this with your family, I think it might be fun. Sure.
You're welcome to stay.
Of course, yes.
Hang around here for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely got a few minutes to stay. So I hope you learned something.
You.
Yes, Nedra.
Maybe a thought would be.
Thank you so much.
If anyone who's interested in like a parent book club group, the Ruler can sort of meet to talk and have discussions.
Yes, so there's not an actual, the Ruler itself doesn't have a book, but Mark Brackett has the Permission to Feel book, which I know a big part of his research. So that book, the Permission to Feel book, I know is on the table. Yes, that's a great idea. I think it was a book that we all read as a faculty and staff a couple summers ago. So we have lots of copies of it at school too that I know. True. I know that we could,
If anybody's interested in that sort of concept of a book club, it is something that we've been talking about, and Shelley Sal's been great in terms of like just helping us think through like how that might look and work, and as well as Kelly. If you want to email me if you have an interest in that sort of thing and what you might be interested in discussing, I'm happy to try to pull people together, or pass along names to Nedra for those who might be interested in doing something like that. So
not an end of a discussion, we hope, right? This is the beginning of a discussion and a process and approach that we're all as a community going to be working through. So thank you for coming. I hope you learned something for yourself and for your family, and thank you. Yeah, stick around if you have questions. We'll be here.
I should take a